Let me just introduce François a little bit. I know he was born in 1966, trained as an architect, started his office together with Jamel Clouche and Caroline in 1996. And for me, that's really easy to remember because Crimson we started our office in 1994. And that was also, there's a whole generation of offices which were started around the same time. Think of West 8 and MVRDV, Neutings Riedijk. That's the whole generation that started around then. And you can also see that there are similar interests, especially in that first period, a sort of inclination towards complex metropolitan questions, an admiration of OMA that also inspired all the other offices, and that's also something that we share, I think. For us, the work is really interesting of the office l'AUC, which, by the way, I thought it meant architecture, urbanism, construction, but it's way more intelligent and interesting than that. It means ab urbs condita, from the start of the city. And that was actually, so it's Latin, and it means that it was used by the Romans to before, as a way to say before or after the start of the city, being Rome. So that's, yeah, I thought it was very beautiful and new to me. And the office has been engaging in a lot of topics that are valuable and, yeah, exemplary. A lot of the projects that your office does, I think, take a lot of time, and the long term is very present in these urban planning projects that the office does. So it's not the sort of glamorous building or architecture that I think is most typical for l'AUC, but it's the long-term urban planning strategies in which they also develop new ways of thinking, new ways of working. Especially interesting is that we are here in this block next to the station of Rotterdam, which is going to be completely transformed and rebuilt and densified. And one of the main projects that François will be talking about is the Lyon Part-Dieu, which is it's incomparable with this area in the sense that it's way, way bigger. But still, there is a way of working in Lyon that I think could be interesting for Rotterdam as well. And also for other projects, because here we are in a 50s neighborhood, which is characterized by the 50s orthogonal buildings standing on the ground, streets, etc. But we also have a lot of areas in the Netherlands that date back from the 70s and which are characterized by this stacking of layers, by different levels of shopping centers, offices. Think of Hoog Catharijne, or think of Zuidplein in Rotterdam. Very complicated projects that all need to be transformed now, and the question is how to do that. So today we'll be talking about that. And I think in general, the projects of l'AUC are dealing with the transformation of the city within the city. So not tabula rasa, not demolition and new buildings, but much more cautious, much more humble maybe, gradual transformation within the existing urban substance. And also interesting is that they just published this book on the 2 towers in Brussels that were transformed together with the Belgian office of, I always forget the name, 51N4E. And that also use the same idea of not demolishing, but to recycle, keep the buildings, recycle as much materials as possible. And this is exactly the topic that we will organize a seminar about next year, February, which is called Never Demolish, or No More Demolition, we haven't decided yet, which is also about all the alternatives that you can come up as an urban planner or architect instead of demolition and new building. Yeah, that's it. I'll give the mic to you. François, happy you're here.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for being here, and thank you for having me here in this wonderful place. I think it's a kind of place where that makes you immediately feel at home, at least for me. This is also my vision of the metropolis, is that sometimes the metropolis is just here in this small room. I love small rooms where people are coming to listen to someone, or there will be a discussion, and it's a concentration of minds, and I don't know, I like this energy, and I think this is what I like about the metropolis, is that it's very big, and then it concentrates suddenly into very specific places, like a small auditorium like here. So I hope I'm not going to be too long. Please, when it's time, you just stop me and we can go on with the evening. I put this title, Urbanism of Transformation, because Michel had told me about this upcoming session on the transformation of the city, and it's true that we work a lot on transformation, so I will present some projects at different scales and different topics that deal with the transformation. And the subtitle is The Intelligence of Situation, which you will understand. The title is both ways. I think our office tries to develop an intelligence on specific situation and not do every time the same thing, but really draw the essence of each situation and topic and take this as material for the project. And then I also think that the situations themselves in the city, in the metropolis, they have an intelligence which you need to understand if you want to play in that. This is me and my three partners. So Caroline Poulain on the left, and me in the middle, and Jamel Clouche standing, and then a younger partner called Alessandro Gess, who was working with us and became a partner recently. And these are two important events in our office. We started the office in 1996, as Michel said, and we were lucky enough to be selected to be part of the teams that were working for a government project on the Greater Paris. It was a consultation launched in 2008, 2009, with many offices. We were the youngest office. There was Enver Divi from here, there was Richard Rogers, there was Christian de Ports-en-Parc, etc. Many, there was Bernardo Secchi and Paola Vigano also. So there was a lot of big offices, and we were quite young at the time, so we were quite challenged by this. So I'm going to talk a bit about this Greater Paris consultation, which is a founding moment for our office. And then more recently, in 2001, we were very honored to receive the Grand Prix de l'Urbanisme by the French government in 2001. So these are important moments. You probably all know this map. It's one condition of the city that fascinates us, the Noli map of Rome, this plan where you can see the compact city organized around the public space, organized in blocks with a street and the interior of the public buildings that are a kind of continuation of the public space. Then this other map is also fascinating, another condition of the city. Ginza in Tokyo, where you have still a very compact kind of system, but every object is separated from the other. But in the Japanese system, in Tokyo, these separated objects, they hold together for some reason. I mean, they're not so close, not so separated. Sometimes the distance between objects is only a few centimeters because of the earthquake regulation and fire regulations. But this is another condition of the city that is fascinating. And then another condition is this one, the Euro Delta and the kind of sprawl and overall the city is everywhere. So basically we like to work in every condition of the city and at every scale. To start, I want to show a bit of this old work. It's now old because 2009, the Greater Paris. We were asked two things. And we were very free to develop whatever thinking or proposals. It was not an operational thing. So some of the teams, they came up with plans and big ideas, and other teams, I mean, we did not want to draw any plan of the perfect metropolis. The question was twofold. One fold was, what should the 21st century post-Kyoto, at the time it was the protocol of Kyoto, so it was the question of the sustainable metropolis, so what should it be? And then the other one was the future of Greater Paris. And we resisted to the idea of making a plan. We found or proposing like some definite ideas. So what we did instead is we observed all this series of cities in the world. I'm not going to speak about each of them, but we studied more than 20 big cities in the world and tried to understand how each of these cities were finding its own way to be sustainable for itself. So there were cities like Mexico or cities like Los Angeles, which are completely different, with ecologies that are very different. So of course we thought of Rainer Banham and Los Angeles and the city of four ecologies. We thought of this, and we thought there cannot be only one way to make a sustainable metropolis. We have to look at how each of these cities they deal, and we came out with some ideas, and we worked more on identifying some situations, what we call situations, which are kind of specialized fictions about the city that we tried to, and that was our way to describe the contemporary metropolis and its questions of how it can be sustainable or not. So this situation, every time we made small models and made photos of the models and told a story. This one is about illegal workers and borderless executives. So basically sometimes these are kind of typology of buildings or typology of situations in the metropolis. And sometimes they were maybe, or they tried to be a bit visionary in the sense that we tried to also highlight the contradictions that the metropolis itself holds within itself. So this idea that for example, in Paris, if you go to a restaurant, the people who are cooking, they're illegal workers, and the metropolis cannot work without this. So that's a contradiction. This was office hotel. Maybe it was a bit premonitory because this was, of course, long before COVID. But basically, how people are going to change the way of working and how it's going to change the typology of the buildings for work. We called it the office hotel for more flexibility, more voilà. We also made a proposal about the big Louvre, the très très grand Louvre. So the Grand Louvre was the project with the pyramid, and then we said, okay, but the Louvre could become even bigger and bigger, and maybe be connected completely to the transport, become really the public space in the middle, in the center of the Parisian metropolis. So each time we made the models, we made these little axonometrics about these fictions, and we tried to develop different stories. Another one which is close to the topic of the transformation is the hybrid cluster here, where we see a part of where you have suburbs, you have the proximity of an airport, the proximity of the traditional city, and all this together creates very hybrid situations that we find very interesting in terms of the creative economy and the creative city. Then this one was a proposal for Paris, or more a way of talking about Paris. We called it the psychotherapy of the Parisian substance, saying that a city like Paris, or old centers, they seem like they're a solid, strong substance, but actually they keep changing from the inside all the time. And when you think of the processes of gentrification or things like that, this is very much the case. And the city, sometimes in Paris, it doesn't show, but it's changing radically in its economy, sociology. And then this last one I'm showing today is this territory object density, and the idea that sometimes we still have to deal with mass production of the city. Especially at the time in France, there was this question of the housing, and how we need, even if the population is not increasing so much, we need to build more and more housing. It's a paradox of the city. But in France, we had this moment in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, when we built what we call the grands ensembles with the slabs, and you had this also in the Netherlands, this kind of big housing estates. And then we have a kind of fear of quantity, and there is a fear in the politicians, or a fear of the density, or a fear of the quantity, and we think it can still be, of course, useful and necessary to think of big developments and big densities. So we thought about this, how we could combine the question of infrastructure and the question of density. And then in the end, we came up with this, which is not a plan, but more a kind of way of describing what Greater Paris could look like. There's a transport network, there's the river, there's a geography, and then there's all these different situations, from large things to small things, from individual housings to parks to hyperdensity, that are attached to this network of the geography. And this was our vision of how the metropolis of Paris will develop in the future. Actually, it came out to be quite true. I'm not going to explain, but maybe many of these ideas, finally, we can find parallels with things that have happened since. One of the things is that there's a new metro system that is going to be, that is under development, that is now trying to connect suburbs to suburbs, and not everything centralized on Paris. So, the first project, real project, I'm going to show is this one, 42 degrees Chapelle Internationale. It's a project that takes place in the north of Paris. You can see this is the area of the project, and this is the boulevard périphérique, and so it's really on the fringe in the north of Paris. And you can see the Stade de France here, which is in Saint-Denis. And now the Olympic village is being built here along the river Seine. this situation is post-industrial territory, because all this plain that you see in the picture around the stadium used to be an industrial plain with factories. And it has been completely transformed little by little since the 1990s into more mixed-use districts and housing, etc. And our project, the project we're dealing with, is here on a former logistics ground from the train company who owns it. And the idea was to develop, because they were not using the land anymore, the warehouses were rebuilt in another place, and the warehouses were rebuilt under the form of a compact warehouse where the trains and the trucks can come in and out, and free up land to develop a new housing district on this part. So as we tried to work from the kind of geographical condition of the site and observe what were the assets that this situation would offer for a new housing district. You see all these are the rails. So this is Gare du Nord. So this is, if you come to Paris, you will arrive like this from here. This is a Gare de l'Est, so it's an area where there is a lot of infrastructures, and the idea is to treat the infrastructure not as a drawback, but more as a kind of asset. In the beginning, when we did the competition, the client wanted us to build a kind of wall of offices to separate a small housing district from the rail. And we decided to do exactly the opposite and rather have this idea where we had the low-rise warehouse here, and then the housing would be developed more high-rise to open towards the view. So we decided to combine two things. What we call the world of below, which is more like street level, 7-meter high podiums. And then on top of that have more higher rise housing buildings that were turned 42 degrees so that they don't face each other and that they actually take advantage of the view on the Sacré-Cœur, which is just nearby. So basically, this is the project as it has been developed over the years, and you can see these lower elements and the higher-rise housing elements that are placed in the territory and make good use of the view and the openness of the site. So this is a view from one of the streets. And this is the different blocks that were developed in the project with always this system of podium. And every time we had one or two architects with a developer and we did the regulations for all the blocks. So these are the different blocks. There is a school here. There is office blocks. And then all these are housing, some private, some social housing. And this is the big warehouse here where the trains can come in and also the trucks, and also including some activities. In the ground floor, we developed this idea of the SOHO, small office, home office, which is the idea that the city has difficulties to accommodate, creative economy or people who cannot pay high rents. So we wanted to provide space for creative activities or activities that have a social value more than an economic value. So these SOHOs were made possible because one investor decided that they could invest in that, and then we have there is one also cooperative that is providing space for with low rents for these people. So there's a long-term investment from an investor who is a public investor, and then this cooperative who provides space or who rents the space to architects or smaller companies or artisans or whatever. So the principle is that we have 7 meters high with a mezzanine and different sizes, so you can live and work, or you can have your workshop or whatever. And it develops, it occupies all the ground floors of the system. So it provides also a street life at the street level. And then we have the housing on top. So it's a way of having the mixity and this superposition of 2 different programs. So this is how it looks like now. With, you see the Sohos. We worked with a Belgian landscape architect called Basmet, maybe you know. So we work with him for the public space and the plantations. So this is the inside of a Soho. It's actually an architecture office. And then you have these upper levels also. So depending on the different blocks, it takes different form, different qualities. And here the architects, they really played with this idea of the transparency and the connection. And as you can see, there is a interesting relation between the living space and the working space. Then another important thing in this project is the public space that we designed also, and we are building with we have a public square, then we have these smaller alleys and a street that goes around the district. It's about 1,000 units for housing altogether. So it's quite a good community. Not too big, not too small. Enough to have a school, for example, which makes a real district. Enough to have a kindergarten. This is the landscape principle. And also an important thing is that we reused all the cobblestone that were on the site. There were several layers that had accumulated over history, so they were all taken. They were all, when I came with the train, I saw I think it was just before Breda or something, there was a huge field with lots of cobblestones stocked there. So it was a bit the same. So all the cobblestones were taken out, then they were sorted, and then we reused them according to their different colors to create this kind of striped public space. Quite discreet, but it's very unique because it comes from the site itself. So then there is this idea that the horizon comes inside the city and on the upper level. So you have the Soho at ground level, and then on the upper level you're open in the view and the big territory of the Paris as the metropolis. This is quite different from the traditional Parisian fabric, where you're more in the streets, right? So that's under construction, seen from our office. And here you can see the big warehouse and the housing that emerged behind. So that's under construction a few years, maybe last year. And there is also this interesting building that is kept. It doesn't have a new function yet. It's an old print shop from the train company. They used to print the paper to make the tickets. They're still using it, but one day it will be transformed. So there is this relation between the existing, say, industrial heritage and the new buildings. This is the last one that is under construction. This is a very recent photo. So that's the Chapelle Internationale, showing how basically we can play with the infrastructure, which is a thematic that we kind of also like. And rather than fearing the infrastructure and protecting ourselves from it. The second project is very different. It's a project in an old factory in Lille. So you can see that there's also a very strong presence of the infrastructure, the rail, the highways, and this old steel plant in Lille, where they used to build, things like locomotives or things like that. And what was completely what impressed us about the site, it's not necessarily the quality or the architectural quality of these big halls themselves, but more the size and the gigantism, and the fact that it was hectares covered by a roof. So basically, we worked with Pascal Cribier, landscape architect, also French, who's passed away now. But when we first visited the site with him, he said we should transform this into a factory for the water. So basically, that was the starting point of the project. And then the other starting point of the project was to say that the demolition cannot be the first idea. Because, of course, the client, the city, they wanted to demolish everything and then build, small houses and a nice little everyday neighborhood with totally no interest. So basically, we resisted to that. We did not say never demolish. In the beginning, we were working with Lacaton Vassal. But we could not continue with them because they were completely radical. They were saying we will never demolish anything. So you should invite them. Because they're really radical about this. But then if there was absolutely no demolition, then there would be no project made. So in the end, what would happen is that everything would be demolished. So we decided to have a more kind of compromised position, which was not compromised, actually, but that was really, we never demolish something if we do not have a really good reason to do it. So that was how we worked with that, and we considered this factory to be what we call the living matter, something that can evolve in time, a kind of matter that is living and that will continue to evolve in time. So part of the halls will be demolished, others will be kept and transformed, and in the end it becomes a completely hybrid project. So these are halls that are refurbished. It's one hall was used for a European school for hotel and this kind of economy, and by Caruso St. John's. And this is another hall where we have this big water tank that was built to take the water from the roofs, and then the water is distributed into this system to make the irrigation of a park inside the district. They wanted a park, but we didn't make a park. We made a more like a network of green spaces that irrigates the whole district with this system of the water that becomes apparent, collected from the roof. And it echoes the old way how infrastructure kind of infiltrates the factory and distributes everything. So some images. This is the image of the park, the network park. Then this is how it looks like with this water system. And then the whole, as you can see, again, it's not a master plan, it's a kind of more armature of something inside which then the buildings can evolve, develop, there can be some demolition, some new reuse, adaptive reuse of some of the halls. Again, also we did the work on the public space, reusing the existing materials and elements. And this is interesting because this photo from the factory. Basically, this factory, it was never fixed. It was a factory that used to readapt according to the projects that they had to make. So if they had to make a big object, sometimes they would add a hole. If they needed to make a high object, they would make a higher structure. So it was a living matter, and we tried to keep it that way, which is also why we don't take it as a kind of religion. We're not going to demolish anything. We think it can continue to evolve, but it shouldn't be erased and then replaced by something else. It should be more in a process of evolution. So that's a model that we made for the project. More images, always trying to put together how it was, how it can be. And this is one of the halls that has been rehabilitated quite nicely, keeping also the original colors of the factory to house new functions. Yes. Yeah, also this kind of direct correlation between our new big tank and the old tanks that were in the factory. And by doing this, we thought that it was also a way to reconnect somehow, because this was, of course, the factory, but the factory was the heart of a district, because people, workers, they used to live around and go to work to the factory. And we wanted to keep this connection between new functions in the factory, like public facilities, like the park, that would serve differently the community that is around it. Yeah. We're going a bit up north. That was in Lille. Now this is in Brussels, and this is the World Trade Center of Brussels, the two towers, and this idea of the publication, how to not demolish a building. So this is a project that we did with 41 and 4E and also Jasper Ayers as a kind of big leader of, not leader, but architect, operational architect. This is the book that was published recently. And this is the two towers here on top of the picture, very close to the Brussels North Station. And it's part of a district that was meant to be completely demolished to create a new World Trade Center and district, and under the principles of modernity and slab urbanism, and this was the idea. There was a huge protest and by activists and people and residents against the project, and then in the end, the slab, of course, never happened. This was the idea, to make this car-oriented kind of development with multi-level system and towers, glass towers. But in the end, the slab was never made, and then in the end, we have public space, but quite poor and no relation with the buildings in a way. So basically, our idea was to keep these two towers, keep whatever we can from the towers, because in the end, when you start digging and you start transforming, it turns out that you cannot keep everything, but basically keep at least the structure and what is very expensive in terms of money and material is the core of the buildings. Reuse the cores and then rebuild with a third tower connecting the two previous towers. So there's a third tower connected here. So that's basically the concept of the project. and also completely reattach them to the ground by a system of ground level. So there is a big glass house as a public space on the ground level. And this idea of having this new element, you will understand, because this is the existing tower where you have floors that are quite low, that were okay for offices at a certain time, but today people want higher floors. So we keep this, and then we put in a new tower, we put double height. So basically you have less typical office space at some levels, but then in the middle you have double height, so it means you can really plant, and you can have thick floors, so you can really plant real trees inside your offices. So this is the principle. And then we pushed it further by saying that it will be mixed use, but not superimposed, or not. It's one floor is one function, another floor another function. So this is the principle of the height and the double height. And then this is the principle of the mixed use, where the middle is always offices here, and then this is an office plan. But then when we have lower floors, one floor will be office, the other floor will be housing, or one floor will be office and another floor will be a hotel. So basically, it's a combination of many functions. This is completely distorted. This is more the idea of the ground floor that becomes completely porous to the public space, with a glass house and also some terrace inside the big tower. And the model of the project, where you see the double floor here, and different floors where one is office, and then one is housing, one is office, one is hotel. So that's the project for these two towers. Do we still have a bit of time? Yeah? So basically, I'm going to show the project that we're involved in Lyon since 2009. So that's, as Michel said, a long-term endeavors and commitments. That is the site as it was in '66. So basically there was an old military site with barracks, with a functional railway, but no station. These were the military barracks. And on this picture in '65, you see the beginning of a project, which is more like developing a grand ensemble, kind of, I don't know how to say that in English, a kind of big housing estate, social housing estate. Not only social, these are, so with these big slabs of housing here, here, and here. So that was a first plan that was developed by the Swiss architect called Jean Zombrunnen. He made a plan for this district as a housing district. This is the center of Lyon, on the peninsula between the river Rhône and the river Saône here. So it's kind of peri-central district. And it was an old barracks district, and formerly it was marsh in the old days. So basically it's a place that has been reclaimed little by little by the city, and then in the 19th century there was a plan made to create a kind of development according to a grid. And this is what the state at the time wanted to make for this district, because the idea was connected with the idea of decentralization in France, how you bring some administrations and government more into the regions, regional cities. So they made this big plan, which I call state urbanism here, on the slide, where you can see the ambition of having a big train station here connected to the rail. Then you can recognize these slabs of housing that we saw on the photo. And then some big buildings for administration. This is the mairie, basically, but the mairie for the metropolis, the town hall or the metropolitan hall. Then some office buildings. This is for the state, the government, administration. So this was, and here the idea of shopping mall. Originally, there was the idea of creating a slab, donc separate the pedestrian and the car and a slab, and we can see here these different pedestrian bridges that were partly built but never completely finished. So basically, it didn't really work. This is the guy who was in charge of the plan and the development of the plan. So he was a urbanist from the state, Charles Delfont, and I met him before he passed away, but I could meet him a few times. It was very strange how he talked about this project, because he said, I don't understand what you find interesting in this district. When we built it, we meant everything to be not lasting. Like not temporary really, but okay, there is the library, okay, there is the auditorium, but then the rest, we did not build it to be lasting long. That means in the 60s, 70s, they were really thinking of building things that would be demolished quite soon after. Very strange. And then he said, he wrote this book as a kind of testimony, the success of a failure. Because for him, the project was completely failed, because nobody respected his plan. Nobody respected his slab, nobody respected so it was too liberal. So he had, all the book is about his frustration of saying, I wanted to do this, but it was not possible because the investor didn't want, or I wanted to do this, but it was not possible because the mayor didn't want. And then it's all a book about frustration. But then economically, the district is a real success. It's full, the rents are super high, people want to go there, you take the train, it's full. So it's a very busy business district. So when we started the project, so this was how he saw the project. This guy, it doesn't look like his face. This drawing is much more attractive than the face of the guy on the other photo. But this it's like a children's drawing, and you see there is nature. Inside there is the ground is sort of, so there is different levels. So these buildings, this one is quite, it has been built, it's quite iconic of the city of Lyon. But then of course none of the rest is like this. So this is how it should have been. But then this is, what happened is that first is the plan of Zumbrunn with just housing. Then in '64, the first plan of Charles Delfont with the station here, a big square or a big garden here. Then in '76, the station, 67, the train station becomes even bigger in the plan, and you still have this big green space. Then in '75, change, no station. The state says, no, we're not going to build a big station in Lyon, because there is already a train station, so forget it. So this is, the plan then is replaced by a huge shopping mall, which is here. But it has already started to be developed, so the library is already turned, but the wrong way. So basically, the shopping mall comes, blocks every direction, and then the station, later on in the 80, the station comes back in the plan. So basically the district is already turning its back to the station. So it's completely, all the intentions of the initial plan are completely ruined. So we can understand why he was so disappointed, the guy, because it's a kind of accumulation of stupidity, one after the other. And also a kind of lack of control on things, because this shopping mall, as you can see, it's occupying all the space. So it's like a kind of proliferation of things. And now this is how we acknowledge the shopping mall. We even accepted, not we only, of course, the city, to enlarge the shopping mall so that a big project of renovation and more new entrances, new crossings across the shopping mall, going to the roof, etc., was made possible by means of an extension. But then we find another way to clear some space for introducing a big green space inside the district. So this is how we had when we started to work, how the district was. So you can recognize this tower, you can still recognize the big slabs, you see this, all the towers, and most of these buildings, they had to be refurbished, remodernized. The investors were going to reinvest in them. All what you see here is almost all private. This is the library, so this is public. This was the station. The station is under the rails. And this was a kind of postmodern kind of development that was made. And these buildings you cannot transform. It's a kind of facade of buildings with no flexibility at all. So all these buildings from the 1980s that were made with a station, now this one is a building that was never really used, but it was built in the middle of the public square in front of the station, blocking everything. So basically all this, nothing could be transformed. So basically all this is going to be demolished and rebuilt when the more 1960s buildings offer much more flexibility and much more adaptability. So that's an important point. So the library, then there is an auditorium that you can see here in the back. There is this tower here. And this is the situation of the district that explains the different scales. It's really inscribed into the European metropolitan scale of connected, by plane and by train to places like here, but also to Italy or Spain. And then it's also in the heart of the metropolis of Lyon with various different big projects in Lyon to develop new districts. And then it's completely at the heart of the transport system of the metropolis of Lyon. So it's a really super central element. It's not in the center of the city, but it's really the center of the metropolis. So this is what we try to work on. Then this is a plan where we see how this district is like a world of objects, towers, this huge shopping mall, the library, within this kind of more regular texture of the 19th century grid of the development of the city. So we found this interesting to play with this contrast also, not try to blend, but keep the contrast between the two. What is important, in our opinion, in the project was also to reconnect the East and the West by means of public space and reassert some major connections. So the station is one connection across the rail. Then here are other connections, and we also wanted to bring more porosity to the shopping mall, bring more porosity to many things, and also so reattach the east and the west of the rail, because the rail is a real cutting inside the city. So we started by also developing this concept of what we call the open station. So the station is actually under the rail, but then we propose to develop it in front here, and also you don't really see that on this picture, but we create a new access to the tracks along this street here that is going under the rail. So the station will become a kind of square around, much bigger. And then from there, so this tower now exists. It's been built by Dominique Perrault. And we managed to intricate the station and the tower, which was something that everybody said we could not do that, but we finally did it. And this is the idea of the open station with a new access to the metro, etc. So this was a vision of the project that has slightly evolved, because in 2020, a municipal election, and the ecologist municipality won against the other municipality that was more liberal, let's say. And then they said, we don't want any tower anymore. So no high rise. So this was one drawing, and now it will be more, it will be lower, but maybe it will rise again with the next municipality. So I'm saying this as a kind of joke, but basically, if you learn from this guy, Charles Delfont, and all his drafted plan, all his plans that were never realized as he wanted, you say, it won't be different with me, you know? The place is too strong, it will resist. There are logics that I will not be able to, especially on the long term, political, economic, etc. These logics that, so basically we tried to make the project on clear principles that would resist time. So some of these principles are the open station. So that was the existing station. Now the station is going to be all around. So basically we're doubling the size of the station, which is important because it's a very, very busy station. It was meant for 30,000 people per day, and it's already 120,000 people. So it's already 4 times too crowded. So we're doubling the size. I'm saying we, it's collectively with the train company, the municipality, the state. There's investment from also investment from Europe on this project. It's very important. And so the open station, then we also capitalized, and that's one interesting thing, is we had these tunnels for the cars, because the project was made in a time where the city was meant for the car, so you had these tunnels, etc. So we're capitalizing on the presence of the tunnels to catch all the traffic that goes into the parking, the taxis, the deliveries for the station. We're catching them from the tunnels, so we can clear the whole surface in front of the station from any vehicular traffic, and have only public transport, bicycles and pedestrians. And we're creating this new underground, not underground, but sunken plaza to accommodate the new access to the metro. So we're working here on a huge infrastructural complex that, by doing it underground, it allows to really free up space for street life on the surface. Okay, so this is a vision, this is the trains, the platforms, this is the new station rebuilt here. the station with the access to the, and then here you go down to the metro, to the parking, and to also a big bicycle station. Oh, okay, it's only 2,000 spaces, so I think it's a joke for for you here. But basically, in France, it doesn't really exist. I mean, you know, the bigger you have is like 10 or. So it's a kind of premiere to make a really big parking for bicycles attached to a station in France. So basically, this kind of allows to make an exchange node that is much more efficient. This is a sketch of the open plaza. These are the very old drawings that we made, very sketchy, and other architects were in charge to actually build it. But basically, they really respect it. So this is the ramp that will go down for the bicycles. Oh, sorry, and the access to the metro. Yes, and this is how it is now under construction. So basically, when we did this drawing, we were thinking, let's make a drawing, you know. Okay, let's make this hole, let's make this ramp here, and then they're actually making it. And it's too late now. They cannot stop. You know? Even the new municipality, when they were elected, they would have liked to stop the whole project, but it was too late. So it's like this now. So I hope it will be okay when it's finished. But at least it will be more comfortable, much more open. You can see that the library here, this is a silo, because this is they have a very, very important collection of books in this big silo. I think it's the second biggest library in France in terms of the collections that they have. But before that, if you remember the photo I showed, there was a building blocking the two things. So now there will be you will arrive on a big public space and you will see the library, and there will be not all these cars here. It will be a nice public space with public transport. So the second big principle after the open station and the infrastructural node is this idea of, we called it easy ground. Easy ground, the idea is that we reorganize the surface and the public space so that it really accommodates smoothly the different uses. So we rebalance everything, take a lot of the car out of the public space and give more space to pedestrians, bicycles, etc. We think also about signage. We think about nature in the public space and climate. So basically, we are working on this public space. We are doing part of it, and other parts are done by other architects or landscape architects. But basically, this idea is to extend the public space so that it catches all the important spots of the district with this comfortable public space. Then it goes along with this idea of active ground floor. This is quite a simple idea, but basically in these developments from the 60s, 70s, basically you walk in the street and everything you have around you is parking walls, because the podiums are filled with parkings. So we decided to put a rule, and it's a rule that is now in the urban regulation of the city for this district. Every time you build a new building, you need to make this 7-meter high with a mezzanine volume here that will be open on the street and suitable for commercial or creative activities or whatever, or public things. So this really is starting to change the feeling of the district. This is one of the first that was made. So sometimes the architecture is not really what we wanted, but basically the rules are strong enough to still bring in a new quality. notably a quality to the public space. So you can see this 7 meter is quite high. You can have a mezzanine. Then this is another example here on the left. You have office, and then here is now a restaurant. This is one of the streets that we redesigned. That's under construction, but you can see it's a bit like the Chapelle Internationale principle, where you have this 7 meter that defines a street level where you have activities that are open to public and that create this street life. And then above that, you have different, you have housing or the offices. Then another principle important is this idea of the green infrastructure, because this district, when we started to work, was and still is very, very mineral. So the idea was to, because we redefine the space and reallocate the space to the different functions, we can free up a lot of space to plant a lot of trees and create new public spaces. So for example, here today there is a big building that is going to be demolished. It's a building that we propose to rehabilitate, but then the state, it's owned by the state. They decided to demolish it, but basically we said, okay, if you demolish it, then you will reconstruct your offices on both sides of a big public space here that will be green. So basically, one building disappears, but then it allows to create this new public space and green space that the district never had, actually, because of the adventures of the plan. So basically, this is this idea of having a kind of green horizon that accompanies the people who go out from the station and go to the city center. So you will be very much in connection with the green. And this place here, you see in 2012, that was a bus terminal and a parking. And this was a space for pedestrian, right? For all the users of this. This was their space. And it was only a black surface. So this is now like this, where we managed to compact the bus station, the bus terminal, compact the parking, and even the parking is going to disappear and it's going to be replaced by the hotel. And we managed to plant about 100 trees on a porous surface. It's mineral, so people can walk in every direction, but then we treated the technique so that the water goes through. And we changed the whole subsoil so that it becomes a fertile subsoil. So these trees, these 100 trees, they're really planted. Even if it's a very mineral, very active, very busy space, they're really planted in solid, in real ground. So this is also the kind of detail that is important in the transformation, is how you treat the technique so that you really bring a new quality. So this is now how it looks like. The trees are a bit bigger now. This is a photo from a few years back already. And we develop also this kind of very simple public furniture. It's a very hardcore kind of condition, a train area, especially in France. I mean, here in Rotterdam, I arrive at the station, I find it very clean, very, if you go around the train station of Lyon Part-Dieu, you have all kinds of people. So you have businessmen, blah, blah, but you also have, people begging for money or dealing drugs or so it's kind of hard condition. So we made this very robust furniture. Here you can see people can plug their iPhones to the bench. But the city, they unplugged all our benches because they don't know how to maintain them. They don't know who is responsible for this. So that's one of the big problems we're facing in this kind of very simple innovation. You think, okay, putting a USB plug in a bench is a very simple thing, but basically a city cannot, they don't have the, I don't know, the people to maintain, the people to actually run the service. So they unplugged. So I hope maybe one day they can replug them, but that was very useful for people. So you see, very simple, very robust, already very dirty. After, maybe 1 year or 1 year and a half, this photo. And you can see the detail of the trees that are, it's 5 meters between each tree, so very dense plantation. And the details of the pedestrian crossings, and a general view of the new square. Then the last principle, I think, is maybe also quite important. It's how do you deal with architecture? So basically, we had this idea of calling it the style Part-Dieu, because this architecture of this time, even if the buildings are a bit different, they talk to each other. They have a kind of relation because they have points in common. And I was mentioning the Charles Delphont and how he saw the district as a kind of disposable thing that you built for a few years and then you built new. He was a very modernist in a way. Start from scratch all the time. So basically the issue is how to switch from this culture of the disposable to a culture of the transformable, and how we can find a potential into the existing buildings. So these are all the buildings that we found interesting, we're trying to protect. The facades of the shopping mall, the library, of course, the auditorium, the pencil tower, they call it, the big housing slabs, because the apartments are very big, they have big views, they have 2 orientations. Some of the office buildings, the hotel of the metropolis here, very interesting buildings. So they create a real heritage that you can build from, and you can add new things to them and create a new collection. And the blend, if the two manage to discuss with one another, then you will have something very rich, rather than demolishing and building something brand new that will discuss with nothing. That will be a kind of, autistic kind of. Very often I find that our new urban developments, they are very autistic. They are the new standards, but they don't discuss with the old, but then they don't discuss with the future either. Very often something is built, but it's already obsolete. In terms of architecture, in terms of functions, programs. So basically we try also to promote transformability. After the first transformation, it should be transformable again and again. And you can see here that none of the buildings from the 80s, they're part of this. Because in the 80s, they were just making a kind of urban architecture facade with quite nice drawings in terms of facade, but inside you cannot transform anything. It's completely fixed, paralyzed. So basically we're more playing with that. And we're trying to find the common denominators between these elements. Simplicity of the volume, kind of modularity, certain colors, from beige to pink to gray to bluish. So we're trying to describe this, and then from that create some flexible rules that architect can then interpret and try to make new things. This is a building by 41 and 4E, again, housing. This is an old, the old tower. This one, the architecture, I could not do anything. So it's like this, it's white plastic, bizarre. But basically, in the end, because we have this active ground floor, it kind of blends. So you can never master everything. But basically, if you have strong principles like this idea of easy ground or active ground floor, etc., or the open station, then basically the details can change. Some things can be missed, but basically the big target you still manage to obtain in a way. So that's okay. So this is this tower that has been developed with an extension attached to it. So then you can like or not like this, but what is interesting is that they did not demolish the tower. And in the beginning, the owner, they wanted to demolish and build a new tower. And this one, we managed to say, no, you can extend your tower. So they used the same core and just extend the floor of the tower. This is the shopping mall redeveloped by MVRDV according to our master plan, where a lot of function went on the roof. The roof was only a parking before, a parking for a supermarket. So the people, they went on the roof with a ramp, enormous ramp, bring their car on the roof, and it's a pity because from the roof you have a superb view on the whole city. So basically, this was changed. We managed to have this kind of big stairs that lead to the roof. On the other side, there is also electrical, mechanical stairs, and then restaurants on the roof, etc. So the extension of the commercial center, and then there is I always wonder if it was a good idea or not, but basically it's the reuse of original pattern that they had on most of the facades of the shopping mall, but not all of them. So basically, MVRDV, they followed our guidance and reinterpreted this pattern of the concrete panels. If it was metal, if it was I don't know what, plain concrete, I think it wouldn't. Basically, this thing is enormous, so I think the pattern helps to blend it or integrate it into the district. If you go there, you can reflect on it. And this is another type of thing, and because towers are maybe not the only solution, but we propose this idea of the post-tower, and we called it the perfect Part-Dieu building. But the idea is to create big city, create compact, but in a very compact way, without having to be high-rise, but bringing also a lot of function in the same operation or development. So that's actually our feasibility, because we do the feasibility studies, and then the architects and the promoters, they develop the project, and actually they built this, which is quite, which is very close to our feasibility in a way. So, yeah. And then there is this idea of, you know, how this kind of district in the center of a metropolis that has a very strong position in terms of the geography, because you have the Mont Blanc near here. From this tower, you see sometimes when the weather is nice, you can see the Mont Blanc. So we had this idea that we could integrate a new kind of skyline inside the metropolis. So it will not be so dramatic in a way if there is no more towers, but maybe in the future there will be new towers, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah.